very good to be here again, seeing all these people live. Has been a 3-year hiatus for me. Even worse, my 25 plus years streak of being in India at least once was broken by COVID. So it's not a big sacrifice, but I really miss being here. So thanks for being here and thanks for watching. I'm going to talk about, you saw the slide of that and give me the framework a little bit, help you how to understand what's really happening out there, talk about, of course, what has changed, some success strategies that you can employ, and last of all, most importantly, recommendations. Right? So the time frame you can plan for your enterprise, what will be happening, what you should be doing is most 5 years. So really what you should do is take a trip to the Easter Islands. No, just kidding. But think about where will your enterprise be in 5 years. And that's super hard right now because everything's been running so fast for everybody at the moment. So I'll give you a little framework what you can think about, right? You can think about the things which are happening as macro trends, which you cannot influence. That is, will the Indian central bank raise interest rates? Yeah, how is the rupee to the dollar exchange, which is all in the news here since I'm in India last week. That's the number one thing that I keep as a red thread. What's going to happen with the midterm election in the US? You cannot influence that, you should think about it. What's really close to you as your HR leaders is what is happening in the workforce. Yeah, what's happening specifically in India, what's happening on the recruiting side, what's happening with people being happy. And the big trend, which I just thought about recently for you is that, not you guys, you're lucky from that perspective, but the first world, North America, Western Europe is running out of people, is running out of hands. Yeah, that part of the world is moving from 6 people working for 1 retired person to only 2 people working for 1 retired person. And that means automation has to dramatically change. You will be the beneficiary of that because guess what? Your technology and software vendors are all building for that scenario. So in the next 4, 5, 10 years, you will get very, very different software from the vendors who are sponsoring here because they have to react to that. We'll talk about disruptive technology and, of course, what is really moving the world, which are new digital business models. But at the core of that, and I like to hear that from Esther, Xenia alluded to it a little bit too, things have to move faster. Is anybody of you working in an industry which is slowing down? Anybody? I love to know what industry that is, right? Because maybe I want to retire there or something, but everything is moving faster, right? Enterprise acceleration is real. Companies have to move faster, have to be more agile. And what is really happening and how can you measure that it's happening? You can look at the financial indexes, right? For instance, so you can get a slide here, the Fortune 200, 500, over 50% of the companies who were part of that in 2000 are no longer in there. They have not disappeared, but they just didn't grow fast enough. Some of them got bought, merged. Same thing for the Dow Jones. Is it a thing which only happens in the US? No, in my home country, where I originally come from, in Germany, same thing there. The DAX has completely turned over. Is it a thing which happens in the UK as well? It's a thing which happens in Japan, which is generally very slowly moving, but think of this, right? Almost all the members of the Nikkei are gone, original members. And last but not least, very interesting, the S&P average age of a company being large enough to be part of the S&P 500 in the US is only 10 years old. That's how fast they grew to that. Yeah, so things are definitely moving much faster. So I have 3 slides for you to take away. My ambition is only that you learn 3 things from me. Which one is up to you, right? But this is the slide you have to pay attention to because that explains everything. And that is the relationship between business best practices and technology capability. And traditionally, we have a continuation and getting better of business best practices. You have to get more efficient as an enterprise every year. Shareholders, owners demand that, expect that. Technology has always been able to do less. Technology has always been a compromise, doing less than what you expected to do. And in the last 10 years, there has been that technology for the first time overtook what you're demanding to do in your enterprise. And that's a completely different way of operating. That's a totally different thing of reacting and changing your markets. And I think at some point we'll see that business best practice will accelerate. I don't know if our lifetime, what you need in your business to run successfully will demand more from technology that it can deliver. But it's a completely different mindset. And there's 4 phases, right? Analysts love phases. We're all very comfortable in the legacy phase, right? We know that. But the inflection phases, that's where the disruption happens. That's where you heard the talk about the Airbnbs, the Ubers, and so on. Remember that? And now we're in the opportunity phase. We'll talk about some of these opportunities where you can really transform your workplace, your enterprise, you can disrupt your competition. And then there might be a catch-up phase. We'll see if that happens. What are some things which you can count on? You can keep counting on globalization. Right? COVID might have stopped something on travel and so on. It has come back. It has come back so strong that the airlines can't keep up with demand. Then, of course, we have digitization. Right? Everything is getting digital. More digital exhaust and artifacts are going talked about. I don't know if my keynote from 3 years ago is on replay. You learn everything about digital artifacts and digital exhaust there. And then aging population. I told you about that trend already happening in the first world. And the pandemic. And I really love that Esther was talking about, like in general, we say every challenge is an opportunity, but the pandemic is also an opportunity to rethink the way of thinking. I had a question to CHROs 5-6 years ago back in the US. What would happen if everybody would work from home? Remember, we had this big discussion about work from home, how much, how often. Companies that should not be mentioned, like IBM and Yahoo, used it to get rid of people because they didn't want to work in the office already back then. So my question to CHROs was, what if we had the big earthquake, right? I live in California, so the big earthquake's going to happen. Luckily, nobody got injured, killed, just the buildings are not safe. And of course, government's going to take a long time to figure out which buildings are safe and can reopen. And then if they have to be repaired, it's going to take even longer time. So one CHRO, I'm not going to say who he was, in which company, he said, the hit on productivity of all the companies working from home is going to be probably around 20%. Everybody else went, impossible. It cannot be. It's going to be half, 40% productivity loss, impossible. But the reality for the whole world is, if we aggregate this, despite COVID and lockdowns, business productivity has been up between 5 and 7%. This is how you can be wrong. At the end of the day, this is one slide you know already, you didn't have to come for it, but I want to remind you, it's all about getting the mix right between technology and what your people can do and what your people can deliver. You push the technology too much, your people can't follow, you have a problem. You're too technophobic, don't do technology, and your people are unhappy and leaving because you think you should have a modern workplace. It's about the right mix, like a fine drink. So what has changed? Right? Offices are empty. Right? People are not showing up, they're gradually coming back. I was at a large system integrator campus in Bangalore this week. About 20% is being utilized right now. It's going to get better, but that has dramatically changed. Flexibility has become a premium thing. When do you work, how you work, what you work is a big, big driver. And employees leave. Shame on me, I forgot the name of the gentleman. He was the coveted hire from Apple away from Google. Apple was going to get very strong in artificial intelligence. When the Apple CEO said everybody has to show up in the office from Tuesday to Wednesday, he was the first person to quit. And now to add problems to infamy or whatever the saying is, guess where he went? He went back to Alphabet. Yeah. But think about how difficult it is to get people to come back to the office if your coveted leaders say, no, that's not the right thing to do. And the Great Reassessment, I call it the Great Reassessment, not the resignation, because people are not resigning. They're resigning from one job to do something else. It's not like they can all retire. Right? So it's a reassessment that happens. So people, employees are really asking yourself, you should ask yourself if you don't do this, what do you really want to do in your life, in the remainder of your work life? Yeah, what is the work-life balance that you want to do? Yeah, where do you want to work? Right, what looked like a great place to work right now is not the right place to work anymore in 2022. What will really satisfy you, provide for your family? Where do you want to live? Right, massive change to, you can dump into HR, right, in talent pools. All of a sudden the talent pool is no longer who's in your local area and commute to your office every day and who you could pay for a relocation to move there or who's willing to pay for it themselves. No, all of a sudden it's the time zone. Or even more than the time zone if people are ready to work even or odd hours. Sometimes you don't even know where employees are working, where they're doing this. And what's coming out a little more is that there's a two-tier economy happening. The two tiers being the ones who are having no problem to work from home, apart from control and productivity and all the concerns, and the ones which have to show up at work. Right, this is why Elon Musk says, everybody at Tesla has to show up at work, because guess what? The people who are building our cars, that's the purpose of the company, they have to show up at work. They can't do this from home. So if you're an office worker, you have to come to work too. Right? So there's these two tiers, and you fall on these two tiers. But there's a little more differentiation to that, and that means your work model, the way how your enterprise creates value, determines the way of thinking, how you deal with everything, with strategy, with your people, but also how you deal with working from home and your economy in general. So is it the end of density? This is a big question. When I come to India, I don't think density is so much in trouble. The streets look the same thing. Everything is, the trains are full, the airports are busy, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But for the Western world, if you look at pictures from New York City, if you look at some pictures from Europe during lockdown, definitely that might be the end of density. So what are success strategies? Remember from my presentations I delivered virtually last year, there's 3 enterprise persona typified, apart from the 2 layers, right? The people who have to be, can work virtually, the people have to be at the office. And those are the super busy ones, right? Those were the hospitals, the vaccine manufacturers. Then there's the area of the stutterers, very, very challenging environment, open, close, government allows me to operate like this, like that, or not, like on, off, close, start, restart, and then the sidelined ones, right, the airlines. Now the interesting thing is in the recovery from that, these roles are mixing, right? All of a sudden the airlines are super busy, right? Because they try to ramp up, get their schedules back, right? Some of the super busy are getting sidelined because maybe your vaccine is not working anymore. So the enterprise persona, think about which of the 3 you fall in, and the 2 on the layer side, really determines your way, how fast you can accelerate, what your acceleration mode is, which determines your strategies and where you're going to go. So one thing we know is that everything has to move faster. Traditional economic planning is 7-year cycles. Those are out of the window. Right? We might have a recession, might be going faster, and it's come down to 7 days. So your reaction system, your guidance system has to be significantly faster before. You need to look at your decision velocity. How fast can you make good decisions? You look at your offices very differently, right? One of the biggest, worst investments Apple has ever done is their beautiful campus. Work from home, largely idolized, right? Really looks more like this, right? Super busy with a kid, whatever, trying to multitask, which men are not good at anyway. That's a different problem. But that is a burnout situation for employees too, right? Everybody's happy at home, but are they really happy at home? And like analysts, we always look to where is the sweet spot for automation. And because the first world is running out of hands, and because people are burning out, that sweet spot is moving down towards the bottom left, meaning companies are more ready to compromise of low quality solution. I don't have to have the perfect AI solution to find the right candidate. I have to have a good enough one, which is great. And they're accepting a little more lower affordability of those. So remember the slide? Sneaker as a service, right? I'm a runner, so I would love someone to predict, sorry, went too fast, to predict when do I need a new sneaker and have that sneaker develop. Don't know how to move it back, so you predict, you guess what is the business model behind here? What is this? Toaster, right? So toaster as a service, right? You can figure out when is your toaster going to break. You always will have a toaster. Each time you press the button down on the toaster, it's going to be 5 rupees. I don't know if that's the price point. Anybody here from the toaster maker industry? Where is the sweet point? But you can expand that, right? The whole kitchen. Now the cool thing in 2022, we see the emergence of these models, right? So anybody has a BMW or wants to buy one, right? What is this? Heater software as a service. And this is no joke, right? So BMW charges you $18 a month to have your heaters be turned on your seats. I don't know the subscription level, right? They produce all the cars the same way, and the feature which gets turned on, your headlights, is a subscription fee. But I like it in San Diego because I only need this when I go skiing. The rest of the year I don't need heat as a service. You're closer to the UK, so you might know this one. What is this? Sky Glass, right, from Sky. It's a TV and content as a service. And you get a replacement every 3 years. These are real business models which show you how digitization is changing what is happening in terms of consumption. And all of these, they need elasticity of your business. You have to be able to ramp up and ramp down. And what does it mean? It means elasticity on the technology side. Closer for you at home, it means elasticity on the people side. And it means in your contractual evaluation with vendors that you have to have elasticity in your commercial side. If you use less of software, you want to pay for less. And I tell you, software vendors don't really like that. They want you to pay more and the same, but not less. So look for commercial elasticity in your contracts. Because ultimately you need to be like this gentleman on this famous French lighthouse. You have to be comfortable that the waves crashing towards your enterprise will not drag you along, make you wet, put you somewhere. So quick reminder on the post-pandemic CHRO playbook. I jump in all these in detail, so let me quickly uncover them. So HR core is back, right? Long-term debt. I remember a talent manager saying the world does not need another HR core system. When you don't know where employees are, where they work, how to reach them, HR core is back and needs to track much more things like, do you have a laptop at home? Do we pay for your internet? Do you have your desk? And so on. Payroll needs to be much more flexible. That spot-on bonus, that extra pandemic relief, huge tax, huge challenging for payroll. You need to be more flexible on payroll if you want to give people the monetary equivalent of their work. Benefits and flexibility, very big area of you spending money in the right place to retain your workforce, to make your workforce happy, to make them even stay because you have the right benefits mix. Workforce management, obviously. Work longer hours, work less hours, work at what time. Huge contributor, huge dynamics, huge innovation happening in the space. Learning, right? That was something which I was very bullish 2 years ago. So much more learning. People were bored at home, didn't know what to do. They looked at learning systems. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But the learning opportunity is still there. Because one thing you can learn from the pandemic, that learning is super, super important. Talent mobility. I'll talk about talent marketplace a little later. Internal and global is very, very important. Before you lose that employee, help them find an opportunity which will motivate them and retain them. The gig economy recognize, the gig economy is taking in general a certain hit, I would say, because companies looked at their retained workforces to do stuff. But the gig economy is going to come back because remember, elasticity, the second slide for you to remember, in business, at people side can only happen for contractors and gig workers. So I'm thinking we will see if the economy does okay or goes down because it gives you that flexibility of ramping up and down for contractors and gig workers. And you have to get faster in talent acquisition. Right? Who's seen longer talent acquisition times being okay for your company? It's like an enterprise that slows down, right? Everybody has to hire people better and faster, right? It's a competition out there. But the one golden rule, and here's a third slide for you to remember, enable, empower the people leaders, the people who run your people. Right? Think about what you would like your manager to do to you to make your life better, to make your team more successful. What things can you do for the managers under you to make their life more successful, to help them, help the company get better? Because way too often HR thinks, oh, just another form, just another meeting, put on top of what people have to do anyway. Right, 9 drivers for enterprise acceleration. Quick recap. My recommendations back one. Make recruiting lean, have the managers hire, have a talent depth chart, know where your talent is, and do a word I created, transporting, a combination between onboarding and transferring. We spend a lot of time on onboarding. We don't spend enough time on transferring. And guess what? When your company accelerates, you have to transfer more people. What are the drivers of work today? And we talk about them in detail. People centricity are highlighted. You have to become more agile, no question, you know this already. Then, the decentralized, the digital autonomous organization. A new concept, we could do a whole keynote about this. New ways of organizing people, no matter of the location, around one specific thing. Fund certain business opportunities. That's a new way of people driving in a virtual, digital way. DAOs. The talent market, closer to home, skills, transporting remains super relevant. Wait for the picture, there's 3 more. I tell you when to take the picture, if I don't forget. Okay, but tweet it out in between. And Web 3.0 as technology to enable this, smart contracts, and now is the time. Good crowd. Excellent. Let me know when you have the picture. Right? Is enabling technology. Right? We don't see enough smart contracts which work on top of a blockchain, which allow to run the gig economy. And then last but not least, there's not enough software developers in the world. No matter how many people coming out of IITs, it's not going to happen fast enough. So you need to learn and find a way to take things in your hands. The middle part is the one which is close to your heart in the HR world. So people centricity, mentioned that. Agile, mentioned that. DAOs, mentioned that. Talent market, mentioned that. Skills, right? Huge shout out. I'm vendor agnostic, I'm for all the vendors, but Workday really started this 2013 with an acquisition, failed many times, got it right, forced the whole industry to get skills. I'm personally very skeptical if skills really work, because who hasn't done a skills dive which did not work? How many spreadsheets have you filled out which were never looked at again, or paper forms? So maybe it's going to get it right now. I would hope it's good for everybody, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Transporting, we talked about. Web 3.0 is enabler, smart contracts, and no code. So back to the recommendations. Who knows who this gentleman is? It's a little older picture. He has a remarkable face. Mark Anderson, very good. Here's someone who should win an AirTag or something. Right? He said, software is eating the world. Right? And that's truer than ever before. Every company is becoming a software company, because that's how you automate, that's how you run things, how you deal with your customers, with your employees, with your suppliers. And a big thing, a big quest for you is HR people are generally a little bit on the technophobic side. Right? You might be the first to admit it or think about it. Find creative ways to end your technophobia. It's important for your career, it's important for your success at work, it's important for your enterprise. Try to become a little more techno-friendly if you can. Technology is the enabler for that, of course. The really key thing, I see this all over when you look at implementations that are successful or that failed, it's the change management. Remember, it's this technology and people mix. You have to move them all along. You upgrade your technology, you can't leave your people behind. And the fuel, the motor to get this done is change management. And in the end, it's all about people. And you're the people expert. Right? So that's a good position to be in. So it's not all bad. You want to get a sentient, a listening enterprise that's enabled by, this whole keynote by itself, having all the digital exhaust and artifacts in big data together, listening to the signals in that, understanding if something happens, we haven't seen this. Let's do a survey of people. What is happening there really? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Understanding this, and out of that, creating strategies which run by themselves. Yeah, the listening enterprise is a big, big thing which will come. Remember, your speed has to be faster than the speed in your markets, and for that, you need new platforms. But you can't do this, we know this, without the cloud. New best practices, we'll see they're emerging. It's the most exciting time for new best practices happening. You want to empower the business, empower your first and second line business users. Those are the people who move your company. Make their life easier, your company will do better. Focus on the opportunity, right? This phase, you remember this slide? First slide to remember. See if the inflection's happening in your industry. Look at the opportunity, how you change the way how people can work, how people can do their work and deliver their work. Ultimately, you have to prepare for deep learning, right? Deep learning is the ability of software to learn from us and do things for us. I think it's 3, 4, 5 years around the corner. Yep. Don't lose track of that. Obviously, never hurts to be smart, no question about that. If you like what I showed you, you want to come to the US, come to Half Moon Bay to our innovation conference in October. And with that, I can open it up for questions.
So to tap the opportunity as a HR professional, right? So I'm interested in the skills part in the 9 box that you showed. So as a HR professional, apart from embracing technology, what are the other skills I need to unlearn? And what are the top 3 skills I need to learn as a HR professional to guide my business leader?
That's a great question, right? What do you need to unlearn and what to learn? Unlearning is, I think, the most important thing to learn, right? So understand what things you learned in the past are no longer relevant, yeah? And what's no longer relevant is pretty much, you should say, how am I run my business right now in HR, my department, my function? What are the key pillars of that, and which of them I know already from my gut feel are outdated? And replace them. Have the guts on the flip side to replace them. What they are, not enough time to really go into them in detail. Yeah, but I would look at the general process of innovating the way how you run your teams. Other questions, please?
So the labor participation rate in the US has been consistently falling from the past few years. And you also brought to light how so my takeaway was that there are unfilled jobs. Some stats say there are 11 million unfilled jobs. So what this macro trend, like you alluded to that, would mean for India? What is it that L&D HR should look out for when all of this is happening and there's so much of economic uncertainty? So what should I watch out for as an HR leader?
Yeah, I mean, great point. And the labor participation rate is a huge, huge issue in the US and very complex to understand why. Pardon my ignorance, I don't know where it's in India, where it's trending and where it's going for. The opportunity is really also now that there's a downturn coming that you augment your talent because you see some companies slowing down hiring and some companies even letting go of talent. Yeah, if Mark Zuckerberg says it's really time to get more productive, Sundar Pichai said the same thing at Google, at Alphabet. We have to work harder and do better with less people. Right? That means some tech talent will leave and will be available. Right? So it's I think, a mixture to see what is right, what you can do right to get the right talent mix in your company going out of those macroeconomic effects. Great questions. Please.
Yeah, so I saw two contradictions here. One, we talk about adoption of the new technology coming in and all, which also led to apprehensions of whether our jobs will be there, not there and all. And second part was the managerial capabilities.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about managerial capability, people skill, the empathy plays a very, very big role. So what would be your thoughts in terms of when it comes to balancing the technology and the empathy side of it?
Implement empathetic technology.
No.
Use empathy. We know since humans are around, right? Adam knew here to be nice to Eve, whatever. That empathy is important, vice versa, right? I think it's a basic element of being a successful person, a successful leader. So make sure that the technology understands the change management and understands the necessary things for people to have the place where they want to be, that they feel that their company likes them, that they have a place of belonging, all the good and fuzzy things which technology cannot create by itself, but technology can help a manager to know about that more. Right? Like give the manager the training, the help to have a more empathetic conversation, give them the tools to know how to lead that conversation, right? Who is well prepared to tell an employee that if they don't get better, they will get fired? Right? Who looks forward to do that today? Or in 5 minutes, right? We don't like this as humans. But how can you help me to get better at this so I can better go through that phase? Very good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
More questions?
All right, yes, we take one question from the gentleman there. Can we please have a mic passed to him?
Hi, thank you. So your mention of Web 3.0 and smart contracts really got the attention. Could you probably give a couple of examples that could act as an entry point for large enterprises of how to maybe enable smart contracts and automate certain processes?
Yeah, great question. And we're only at the beginning of, actually my slide was wrong. It's not Web 3.0, that's the semantic web, but you said it correctly. Lots of confusion. Web 3, right, which is the things which I had there, pardon for the wrong slide. The interesting thing is the elimination of the middlemen through blockchain, right? And we have lots of middlemen. And if I would have been right, or many of my colleagues would have been right, we see blockchain everywhere today. We don't see it because the middlemen don't want to go. Right? The middlemen are holding on to things, right? It's not so easy to eliminate them. So really, when you want to use these new technologies, look at the ways how can you find an industry where the middleman is going away, where the middleman is withering away, and you can get rid of the middleman. So that's the only option there. The metaverse that Esther talked about very quickly, the metaverse can only function if there's a commerce function in it, which has to be powered by smart contracts and blockchain, because there's no middleman for that. So watch the metaverse, and out of that you will see how well Web3 will do. 30 seconds for last question.
I have a question. You talked about 7 years versus 7 days, the
Yes.
decision making. That's the base of any success. But vis-a-vis, we have heard about haste makes waste. So how do you balance the two paradigms?
Great question too. I think it's really the experience of balancing out and understanding the necessity of the speed of that decision, right? I talked about decision velocity. It's not only about speed, it's also about the quality of the outcome. And experienced leaders will figure out what's the right time frame for the right decision. But there's a lot of decision analysis paralysis happening in my country, in Germany, happening also in India. When I immigrate, I noticed that, like lots of paperwork and that. The more you can get rid of that for the benefit of your company, the better.
Sure. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
and I guess I have
Thank
to
you,
make a
Holger.
hard decision now.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really hard. All very good questions. Really, really impressed by that. But I give it to the lady, the second question, because she made me think for the first time, saying, well, how stupid about me not looking up some basic GDP statistic numbers about India and just listening on the foreign exchange instead of knowing what the labor participation rate trends are here. So great question. Thank you very much.